Who believed in you before you believed in yourself? For me, it was the women who saw something in me when I was just starting out. 20 years and 5 businesses later, I'm still here because they lifted me up when I needed it most. I'm Tania Gomez, and this is She Shapes Tomorrow, brought to you by Tania Gomez Consulting and Kismet, proudly sponsored by SN Services. Every episode, we sit down with women who are changing lives, building communities, and raising up the next generation. Women who'll remind you what's possible when we stop trying to do it alone. This year's International Women's Day theme is Give to Gain, and these stories will show you exactly what that looks like. Let's get into it. Welcome to She Shapes Tomorrow, the International Women's Day podcast. I'm Tania Gomez, and I'm joined by the wonderful Angela Davies. Angela Davies is the director and founder of Mind Your Grit. After a successful 16-year corporate career spanning HR, strategy, and banking sales leadership, Angela made a bold pivot following a year of personal challenge in 2022. By combining her lived experience of burnout and resilience with postgraduate psychology studies, she now helps organizations understand that high performance is impossible without strong well-being and leadership. Thanks for joining us today, Angela. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to first learn a little bit more, I guess, about the moments that make up who you are. And you said that your leadership was really forged through this year of what you call personal challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about this year and how it helped to shape you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved leading. I loved being a leader in corporate, and my leadership style was to give everything to my team. And so really focus on my team, cared a lot about my team. And then in 2022, I had a serious miscarriage a few days after my birthday. My husband was away at the time in the Northern Territory, and I live in Northern New South Wales. So he was sort of a day away from getting home. And then 2 weeks later, the worst floods our region had seen hit. And so many of the listeners may remember the Lismore floods. It was horrific. And I was leading a business banking team at the time in that region. And so many of our customers and my team were impacted. They lost their homes, they lost their businesses. Many didn't even have ID to be able to get money from the bank. They didn't have groceries. And our entire 2-story banking office was completely underwater. So to give context, I guess, to the listeners about how high the floods were, the Army were in boats having to duck under power lines. So, the power lines were at their height and they were having to lay down the boats to duck under. So it was incredibly trying time. And so I had to very quickly forget about the miscarriage and focus on my team and our customers. And then a few months after that, my husband got diagnosed with, at the time, a life-threatening medical condition. And my response to all of that was just to work harder and more and focus on the people around me, because I thought if I did that, then I'd just be able to keep swimming through. But I guess, as we know, Tania, that doesn't actually work. And there's a point at which your body does scream at you and say, stop, you need to take a break and look after yourself, because I was just operating in fight or flight the whole time, worried about everyone else around me. And I really didn't focus on myself or my health and well-being really at all.
Yeah. And what happened next? How did you use that to stop powering through and actually decide to take care of yourself and put yourself first?
Well, my body made me. So I was at a client meeting later that year, and it was in a hot industrial shed full of men. We were trying to pitch to win a client, and I felt like the air had been completely sucked out of the room. I felt dizzy, hot, and I had to excuse myself from that meeting because I felt like I was going to faint. And so my banker was there. I left, and I got in my bank four-wheel drive and got on the highway to drive home. And I thought I was having a heart attack. So I had to pull over on the side of the road in my bank four-wheel drive. Trucks were flying past me at 110 kilometers an hour. And I didn't know what to do. I couldn't breathe. My fingers felt tingly. My heart was pounding out of my chest. And I called my husband, who is an ex-Navy clearance diver. And so he's exceptionally calm in a crisis. And he told me just to roll back my chair and helped me focus on my breath. And that was a really serious panic attack. And it was the first of many more to come. So that was a little bit of an alarm for me, saying, hey, you need to change something to be able to continue on. Otherwise, we're going to keep showing you that you need to stop. And so I guess I did what any normal person would do. I signed up to study postgrad in psychology because I wanted to understand, how am I going from high-performing leader to panic attacks on the side of the road? And I own a Pilates studio as well. And so being a banker, the maths was not adding up. Very quickly, I realized I couldn't study postgrad in psychology, work 60 hours a week, work 20 hours a week in the Pilates studio. And so I resigned from my corporate job to better understand how I could help others, because I knew I wasn't alone in experiencing this, Tania. I'm sure there's many moments that people feel this in different ways. And it was a really big signal to me to take time to study and focus on my health. And it wasn't a quick journey. You know, it took over a year to recover from that level of burnout. I was still studying at the time and working in the Pilates studio, but that was really the catalyst for me to realize I had to start doing something differently. But I don't think it has to take everyone something as dramatic as that to be able to realize they should invest in their well-being and their mental health. And you won't end up with panic attacks on the side of the road and have to quit your career if we just focus on it every day a little bit.
Yeah. It's quite prevalent these days where women feel, and I think men as well, but in the lens of my experience as a woman, where we feel that we have to do all of the things and be all of the things, and that in order to you to be able to be a high performer or to be at the peak of your career, or even just chasing your goals, that is a all or nothing endeavor. And that if you're not giving 100% of yourself, then you're not doing everything you can. Like it seems to be somehow in society we've started to value being busy and doing more, as opposed to really thinking about us as whole people, as humans. And this, I know it's very overused, but as being a human being, not a human doing, right? We're just trying to fit too many things in, and we get further and further down the list of importance to ourselves. Everyone else's deadlines, everyone else's expectations become overarching in our lives and mean that we kind of lose sight almost of ourselves. We get lost somewhere in there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And there's probably two things I want to touch on there, Tania. The first one is, I know for a fact now that if we don't invest in our wellness first, we'll be forced to make time for our illness at some point. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, but it will be at some point. And I always think, our families and friends don't deserve the least sparkly version of us. Like work shouldn't have the sparkliest version, and then everyone around us has the least sparkly version. And I actually wrote a post on this the other day about when did busyness become the goal, and taking a step back and really thinking about what our rich life is. I'm not saying don't work and don't work hard. I love to work hard, but busyness shouldn't be the only goal. It shouldn't really be the goal at all, right? And I actually love when I say to people, how are you? And they don't say busy. Like, I just don't think it's a badge of honor anymore. And I think it's really important to take a step back and understand what our goals and our purpose is. What's our rich life? Not even financially, energetically, experientially. What are our values? What are the things that are important to us? And then make sure we're doing something, a little bit of that every day or week, because otherwise it's very easy to get caught on that hamster wheel of just go, go, go. And we just feel like, hold on, where am I on that priority list?
Yeah, and also just the meaningfulness of our lives as well. that we're doing all of these things and it's almost like we're deferring happiness. Or when I lose 10 kilos, when I get that promotion, when I finish that book, when whatever the goal is, then I can take some time, then I can be happy. And even over the holiday period, I've said to people, oh, so have you, are you doing anything over the holidays? And almost no one says, no, I'm just relaxing. Oh, we've got to do this and this and this, and I'm painting the house and I'm doing this. And it's kind of this idea of optimizing every minute we have available to us. And I'm as guilty as anybody else. I run a business. I'm doing a PhD. I have 4 children, and I wear many, many hats between all of those things. And it can be quite a challenge to say no, for me at least, and to actually look at my diary. If someone says, oh, do you want to do this on this day, and I look at my diary and it's empty, to actually say, actually I need that empty day, or actually a day of nothing. And with our 4 children, we've got 3 boys who are very into sport, and we've made the decision the last couple of years that we don't do Saturday sports anymore. Luckily, their favorite sport is during the week, so that can work for us. But Saturdays we do nothing. We don't do social engagements. We don't do anything. Occasionally we have birthday parties that we will take them to, because we don't want them to miss out on things either. But we don't make a commitment that is every Saturday we have to be somewhere at a certain time, because our weeks are so busy and there's so much juggling that we all just need a reset day, our children as well as us, to just go, yeah, we can wake up late, we can go to the beach, we can go and have lunch somewhere. We don't do things, but they're scheduled. They're not scheduled, they're free. And that sense of freedom for me has almost become the goal. Instead of getting more money or more things, it really is around, how do I refocus my life so that I have time to spend on what I want to spend time on, not like I feel like I need to be at work, I need to be doing this, I need to be meeting these deadlines. And for me, that's almost a new currency, is time and freedom, as opposed to money.
For sure. I mean, I think we spend our time like it's going to keep renewing, and it's not. That jar is just getting emptier and emptier and emptier. And I think, you sound very clear on your rich life, right? Space, time with your family, freedom. Those are the things that are really important to you. And I don't know if you know of the book that Bronnie Ware wrote, which is The Regrets of the Dying. And one of the biggest ones is I wish I worked less, and it's not about not working hard. And I want to be clear about that. If you want to work hard and you're focused on your career, wonderful, but being really purposeful about how you're spending that time and how you're focused. And I really dislike the rhetoric of work-life balance, because I don't think anything is ever in perfect balance. It oscillates, right? There'll be times when work is more, times when family is more, times when you're focusing more on yourself. I like to think of work-life separation, and it's how can you be wherever you are, wholly where you are. So if you're at work and you're there for that however long, you are 100% focused on that. But if you're with the kids at the beach, the phone isn't there. You're not writing emails, or you're not at the sporting match writing emails, because your kid scores that goal and the first thing they want to do is look up and see that you've seen it, and then you're looking down at your phone. So otherwise we feel like we're always juggled between one thing and the next. So how do we actually separate that so we're completely present wherever we are?
When you're working with people through working this out, what are the challenges they have in pivoting to, I guess, understand that and implement that?
It's a lot of unlearning, Tanya. I think it's less learning what to do and more unlearning what not to do, because the way that culture and society is, it shapes us to be that way focused. And so it's actually a lot more unlearning. I think what's really important is to understand your purpose and your rich life, because that becomes the bar with which everything has to make its way over, right? Is this in line with my rich life? Is this part of my purpose? Does it feel connected to the type of person I want to be and the type of life I want to live? And so I encourage people to really look not just at their well-being, but their whole lives, right? What is a rich life to you? And how do you make sure that the only things that seep through are part of that rich life? and slowing down in responding to things. How many of us see someone at the coffee shop and they're like, hey, we're doing this weekend, you should come. Yeah, sure, I'll be there. Or yes, I'll catch up. And then it gets to the day and you think, I don't want to do that. Why did I say yes? So just being okay with saying, let me get back to you. I actually have no idea what my calendar looks like. So you can just have a little moment to pause and say, is future me going to want to do that? And is it in line with my rich life?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, there used to be this FOMO, this fear of missing out if you didn't go to everything. But now I really get the opposite, the FOGO, the fear of going out. I would much prefer, I travel a lot for work. And so when I'm not traveling for work, I really don't want to leave my house often. I really am so happy just saying no and missing out on things doesn't seem to be, the sacrifice just doesn't seem worth it anymore to me. It doesn't seem worth it to go out and burn the candle on both ends and have a very busy work week and a very busy social week. Just there's never enough time then to recharge the batteries. And I always feel like I'm playing with half a battery, paying half the game that I could be. And as you said, no one deserves that, right? They don't deserve the half me version showing up. They all deserve me to show up. And that really takes me then to put, for me, it's all routine and structure and habits, right? I have to put structure and habits and routine in so that I do get enough sleep and I do get enough exercise and I do have enough time away from my computer, because I do have a tendency to be a bit of a workaholic. I do love my work. I love to help my clients when they need me, but learning that me replying to every email instantly doesn't actually help them, that it can wait a few hours, it can wait a few days at times. And for me, it was kind of almost a separation of ego, that actually the work that I'm doing is important, and I don't think it's not, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not doing brain surgery. They can wait a few hours. It's not life or death. And I'm making every email life or death. I'm making it all so important. But what's missing out then is the exercise, is eating well. By me putting all the priority on work, it means that I'm not stopping for lunch. I'm not walking in the morning, or, I'm not walking or getting any exercise in where I can, because I've overinflated my importance to my clients and I've overinflated the importance of work in my life. And for me, that was a really big turning point where I realized, it's actually better for my clients if they have some time to think about their questions. If I just answer them all the time, they don't have to think for themselves. They don't have to be reflective. They don't have to learn those answers in other ways. And the same when I had very large teams. I've got a small team now, but my first business, I had 1,000 staff. And, the same thing with staff. You get in this habit of answering their questions, being on the Slack channel, being in the chat, answering their emails, answering their texts. There's so many ways for them to access you. That you feel you have to be responsive so that they can keep moving. Where I learned very hard way of, no, actually, if I'm less available and they know when I'm available, so, I'll be available at 4:00 this afternoon to answer your questions, they just need to work it out until then, and it actually creates better skills for them, either my clients or my staff.
For sure. I mean, what I would often see is people would either solve their own problem before I got to them if you wait a little bit. It doesn't buy into this urgency culture. And what I actually found, similar to you, is that people realize the question they're asking is not really the question they need to know, because it's not the problem they're trying to solve when they've got a little bit of space, when they're less reactive. I do want to touch on your fear of going out, actually. And I think we're in a really interesting time where I absolutely agree with boundaries and not filling up your days with millions of social interactions. But I think what we're actually seeing is a reduction in investment in our communities, and that's actually negatively impacting mental health as well. So it's a really interesting, I don't want to say balance, but just an observation point of, yes, we need to say no to the catch-ups that are draining, but have our core circle of people who are really important to us in our community where we do go out and catch up with them. It doesn't have to be every weekend. It doesn't have to be a full Saturday. But I always say inconvenience is the price you pay for community. And community and relationships have been shown to be the number one predictor of our happiness, our physical health, and our mental health. So it's about finding what's right for all of us as an individual, because I hear you. I feel like we went from FOMO to, I heard JOMO, joy of missing out. And I think maybe we need to just come back between the two of them, where sometimes we do go out, because when you've got the right people in your circle, you actually, even if you're tired, I find come back energized. And I'm an introvert, right? So I actually prefer to be on my own. But I find when I push myself out of that comfort zone and do spend time with the very specific people who I know I want to, that actually fills up my cup as well. So it's just another thing to sort of add to the mix there.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, your work is around this idea of grit. What is the biggest myth about grit that you're trying to dispel with the work that you do?
Look, I don't necessarily try and dispel any myths around grit. Grit for me is passion and perseverance. And it's about understanding what you're passionate about, work-wise, mental health-wise, physical health-wise, and then continuing to invest in that even when you don't feel like you want to anymore, because you know it's the path that you want to go down, right? And so I think sometimes people think of grit as just endless tenacity and overwork and hustle, and it's actually not that. It is perseverance. And so Angela Duckworth, who did all of the research on grit, actually found that it wasn't the smartest people or the hardest workers, but it was the people who showed up every day and even just did something small to commit to whatever the goal is, whatever they were passionate about, that actually were the most successful in life, the happiest, the healthiest. And so for me, grit is about that. It's the consistency of showing up for you every day, even if it's just 2 minutes of mindfulness, 10 squats every hour, whatever that looks like. But that's what grit means to me. It means the consistency of doing things that you know are going to, I guess the theme is, give to get back. And that's exactly what it is. You give yourself a little bit every single day to get back exponential rewards for your mental health and well-being.
Are there a few simple hacks that people who are listening today can implement into their lives that will give them, some of that, I know you don't like the word balance, but some of that, I guess, redirection towards looking after themselves better?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I worked in corporate for 16 years in really full roles, right? And so I'm not someone who advocates for a 3-hour morning routine or anything like that, because it's just not practical. So my biggest focus when I work with people is, what are the small things with the biggest ROI that are going to help you right now? So we always do a wellbeing self-assessment so I can understand where someone is individually, but simple things. 10 minutes of morning sunlight, if you're not sleeping well, is one of the best ways to start your circadian rhythm, to make sure that then it dips off as the day goes on and you get a good night's sleep. You can couple that with doing 10 squats in the morning. So 10 squats every hour has been shown to counteract the negative impacts of sitting all day. So a lot of people say to me, I've got kids, I can't get to the gym, I can't exercise. We can all set an alarm on our phone and do 10 squats every hour. It's my dream, Tania, to go into offices and see on the hour, every hour, everyone's just doing squats.
Love that.
So that's amazing. Something that I find really helpful for creativity, performance, but also mental health is a big brain dump before you go to bed or when you wake up. Because for people who are in extremely busy jobs, we often ruminate and we're thinking about a million different things at once. Physically writing down on a piece of paper anything that's on your mind. It can be a list, it can be how you're feeling, it can be the things you've got on for the day. It doesn't matter. Getting it out on the paper and physically writing, typing doesn't work. Our brains have not adapted to typing, is amazing for rumination, lack of sleep, anxiety, because there's action involved. And then one of my final favorite tips is passeggiata. It's an Italian term and it's a 10-minute walk after a meal. It helps with digestion, it stops sluggishness, but it also gets you outside in fresh air. It gets you moving your body. And we can all take 10 minutes, right? If anyone says to me they can't, I would like to say to them, show me the screen time. on your phone, right? We've all got 10 minutes that we can walk. And if you think you can't, can you take your call or your meeting outside walking, right? Just getting that movement in the day is amazing for us. And if you can, do it where there are trees. Not all of us have the ability to do that if we were working in a city, but being in nature and hearing birds actually automatically calms our nervous system. Because if we go back to the caveman days, if we hear bird song, it means it's safe. So immediately we go into that rest and digest. So there are a few things. There's a myriad, right? And when I speak to people, I say, this is a menu of things you can choose from. Don't do all of them. Pick the 1 or 2 things in an area where you're low and just do it every day. Commit 2 to 5 minutes every day. And every single person has 2 to 5 minutes every single day to invest in their mental health and their well-being.
Yeah, I love that. They're so simple little things that I think, at least in my brain, in my overperforming, overanalyzing brain, I sit there and think, well, what's 10 squats going to do? What's 5 minutes outside going to do? I might as well do the 10 emails because that's my pressure point right now, as opposed to take the 10-minute walk. But I do truly know, as a human being who lives in a body, that my body needs the 10 minutes outside. It just is so hard to at times reconcile that and make enough of a case. But yeah, I think I'm trying. My step count is really bad because I'm at a computer all day. And I work from home, so I don't have to travel, transport, walk to a coffee, none of those things. So I usually sit at about 6,000 steps, and I'm really trying hard to get that to 7.5. And then, over the school holidays is very easy because I have to do that everywhere. And weekends, I'm easily 10 to 12,000. But for me, just making that goal of, okay, I've sat more today, and actually getting outside. I'm lucky I live very close to a beach, so I really try to prioritize that bush, that beach walk to get my feet on the sand. And I tell myself it's because my dog needs a walk. Somehow that seems more important than what I need some days. If the dog needs a walk, I have to take the dog for a walk.
Yeah. I mean, look, whatever works, right? Like if there are things, I talk about habit stacking as well. If there are things that you can tie it to that you're doing anyway, that always helps. But let me tell you what the 10 squats is going to do, just so you know next time. It actually, because our quads and our glutes are our biggest muscles in our body, it gets the blood moving up to the brain, which makes you more focused. So even if you think the 10 squats isn't going to do nothing for my health, but it will make me sharper when I'm responding to these emails. So if nothing else, it's going to do that. And, I always say we can have 99 problems at work, right? 99 fires to put out. But if your health fails you, you've got one problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else matters. And, my dad passed away suddenly last year, 3 months after he retired. And he waited till retirement. He wanted to wait to do everything in retirement. And I think it's really important just to know, I always say, imagine if you had one car. So Oprah gifts you a car, right? But you're not allowed to change that car for the rest of your life. And imagine how you treat that car, right? You'd service it every couple of months, you'd change the tires, you'd fuel it correctly, you'd wash it, clean it, really look after it, because you knew it was the only one you'd ever have for the rest of your life. It's the same as the brain and the body. And so I think sometimes we think it'll just keep going, like it's gotten me to this point, it'll keep going, but it deserves the investment.
Yeah, I think that none of us think we're going to get sick until little or big sickness. And I've seen that in myself. I was recently diagnosed with 3 genetic heart issues. I've had them my whole life and they've never caused an issue. And actually I don't have any symptoms from them, but I should have been on medication from when I was 15 years old. And now I'm 40 years old. But talking to the doctors, I'm like, well, does it really make a difference? I haven't taken them this day. Can I not take the medication? Because I'm not really pro medication. If I can avoid it, not something I have to take every day. And they were like, you really can't. Like, it's just, just because there's no symptoms doesn't mean that there isn't things in your body that is building up, that is life-threatening. And, if we hadn't have found this now, I'm 40 with the heart of a 70-year-old. I can get that to a heart of a 40-year-old by doing things that the cardiologists have given me to do. And he says it'll take me a year. So we'll see how we go with that. But just that reality check of, it was had no symptoms. I went to a doctor. We did some extra tests, and there were some few things that just didn't make sense. And they were like, we'll just do some extra tests. And lucky I have an amazing GP who was like, test this. And they're like, oh, yeah, right. Someone probably should have told you about that because this is actually a big issue. And my auntie had a stroke at 45. My other auntie had a stroke at 60. It's quite possible that I have now stopped myself having a stroke. And it isn't actually that I have an unhealthy diet or anything like that. It's that my body has an enzyme that doesn't actually break down the cholesterol in the food that I eat. So I need to now be careful. But I never thought that I was going to be unwell. I never thought I'd have to be on medications every day. I have to have 3 medications every day now for the rest of my life. And that's okay. I've made peace with the fact that that's it. And I'm so grateful that I found it at 40 and not through a stroke or a heart attack. But even my godmother who raised me got cancer when she was 47 and passed away by the time she was 50. And as I get closer to the age that she was, it becomes, my mortality becomes really clear that it's not a matter of will I or won't I get sick. I will get sick. And what I need to do to help myself, the future self, be resilient and be able to fight any type of disease is actually look after myself now. And it probably been look after myself in the past, but all I've got is today. So I have to make better decisions today. And then that has to really be a priority, that not going for the walk or not eating well isn't an excuse because I'm busy, and it isn't an excuse because I have children. It actually is a non-negotiable now. And I think that's actually probably the best thing that could have happened to me, is to have a symptomless thing that wasn't actually hurting me like that, or it was, but that I couldn't feel, to find it, to actually turn around. Because the alternative is of having a stroke and waiting for a stroke, or waiting for cancer, or waiting for a serious illness to make these changes. But yeah, I never thought it would be something I would deal with. I've always been healthy. I've always ate well. I've always exercised. And I kind of in my brain thought I was almost smart enough, right? I'm too smart to get sick. I'm too smart for something like that to happen to me, which is absolutely rubbish. Our human bodies need, are very complicated, and it's the balance of hormones and the balance of everything else in there is a masterpiece and a miracle. And it only takes very small things to interrupt that very delicate balance. And I feel as I turned 40 and going, hitting this, perimenopause seems to be this brand new thing that everybody's talking about. But I'm so glad that it is, because as I get to that stage in my life, having women who understand that your body changes and what actually happens and how to work with that, I think becomes really important for mental health, but also just physical health.
Absolutely. And, I think the beauty is that our body does respond very quickly. So a lot of people say, oh, it's too late, I'm too old, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, no, your body undoes a lot of damage when you focus on the things that improve your health consistently, right? So you can actually make changes, which I think is really important to let people know, that your brain and your body have the ability to regenerate and fix some of the ways that we lived, I'm sure we're all guilty of it. And so I think that's what's wonderful. And, particularly for women our age, I'm 40 in a couple of weeks, Tania, and weight training is incredibly important, like not just for bone density, but also for hormone regulation to help through perimenopause and menopause as well. So, I think lifting heavy things is incredibly important for women as well.
Yeah. Yes, I'm at the gym 3 days a week at least, lifting heavy weights. So it's definitely something. And again, there's just some incredible resources out there that weren't available in the past to really help women understand aging. And I know I'm not like I'm 80, but like getting beyond 20 and 30 and being in the gym. And I've been listening and reading to Vonda Wright and Stacey Timms, and they've got amazing books about how do you actually grow a really strong female body into perimenopause and menopause into older years so that you can, and it's funny that we talk about weight training and most people go, oh, well, you're trying to lose weight. Well, no, actually, I'm trying to be a 70-year-old who can put on my shoes. Right?
Or get up from the bed, right? Or sit down. Or if you trip and fall, that you've got the strength to catch yourself and not break a bone, right? Those are the important things.
Yeah. And I don't think that's spoken about enough, but I think there's more and more coming out about it. And, conversations like this where we can highlight that the little things you can do in your 30s, 40s, 50s just make aging easier as you go into your 60s, 70s, 80s, and, potentially beyond.
For sure. There's an amazing person, actually. Her name's Train with Joan. I don't know if you know her, but she's in her 70s. She was recently on the cover of a Women's Health magazine, and she was overweight, right? And her daughter was a sort of bikini competitor. And she was like, Mum, you need to exercise. You need to work out. And she, in her 70s, started lifting weights with her daughter, and she is like ripped now, right? So it's not even about what she looks like, but the fact that she has, in her 70s, been able to completely change her lifestyle, build muscle, and then be on the cover of Women's Health. So I think she's a wonderful story in that it's really never too late to get started.
Absolutely. Now, the International Women's theme for 2026 is Give to Gain. What does this mean to you in the context of your life?
It means to me, so there's probably two things that it means to me. And I want to tackle this question in two ways, Tania. I think the first one is giving back to yourself to gain better health, better clarity, better performance, and better engagement with the people around you, right? It's the age-old put the oxygen mask on first before you help anyone else. And so I'd love people to think about how they can give back to themselves to gain so much more life in their living. And it also is a gain for the people around you because you're more engaged, you're your sparklier self, and they get the best version of you. So giving back to yourself, first of all. But then I also think, I touched on community earlier. Giving back to community has been shown to significantly improve mental health. So altruism, giving back, I'll tell a story. My nan was really integral in raising me, and she passed away when she's 98. And I love elderly people, right? I think they've got the best stories. They're always so funny. And so I signed up for a volunteer program and I got matched with Des. And Des is amazing. And I spend time with him. I take him for coffees and things like that. And he recently had to go into a nursing home. And I said, how are you going, Des? Do you like it? And he goes, I don't know, Ange. It's really old here. And Des is 91. And my time with Des is an amazing example of give to gain, right? I'm giving my time to him. I'm taking him out. I'm getting him out and about. But I honestly think I get more out of it than Des because it gives me such a sense of purpose and improves my mental health significantly. And I think all of us should think about how we can give back to the communities in which we live in our own way. I know we're all full and our schedules are busy, but, a coffee a fortnight or a month with Des makes his entire month, and I guarantee everyone will get just as much out of it as they put in. So those are sort of the two things that give to gain really mean to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When you look at the woman that you are today, what would you tell the Angela of 2022 who is in the middle of the floods, grief, panic? What would your advice be to her on reflection?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I am a big believer in I don't regret anything because I believe every experience that you have shapes who you are moving forward. But I would have loved to have said, invest time in yourself, look after your well-being, take breaks when you need it, because you'll actually be better at helping the people around you who need you. I think particularly when I look at the floods, there were hundreds and thousands, not hundreds of thousands, hundreds and thousands of people who needed our help. They were distressed, and I feel like I could have given even more if I had have invested back in my own health and well-being. And that's certainly something that is my non-negotiable now. Goes in my diary before anything else.
Yeah. And final question for you today is, where can people follow your work and learn more about what you do?
Instagram, mind.your.grit. So mind your grit. And then I've also got a podcast called Work and Wellness, where I talk a lot about everything to do with work, wellness, career, leadership. I interview some amazing guests on there. And then LinkedIn. So I publish articles on LinkedIn. So Angela Davies, Davies, on LinkedIn are the best places to find me.
Beautiful. And you will be at our International Women's Day as our keynote speaker on the Gold Coast.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person then, and all of our listeners can come along and meet you in person there too.
I can't wait. Really looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks, Tania.
Wasn't today's guest amazing? Imagine being in a room with over 100 women like her. That's our 2026 International Women's Day events, happening across Western Sydney, Gold Coast, Adelaide, and Perth this March. You'll meet women building businesses you want to learn from. Leaders are solving problems you're facing right now, and the kind of people who become your text at midnight support system. That's not networking, that's give to gain. Find your event at taniagomez.com.au. I'll be there, and I hope you will be too.